Hello, hello, and welcome to my channel once again. My name is Brandon Wheeler. I am a indie author and a army veteran and everything. That's why I got Strawman off because I can't talk right when I'm addressing people because I had like heat stroke thing, so I can't talk right unless I bite down something. So I'm waving this have whatever the reason why. Don't know why. Been checked. We don't know why. All right, but this is another book review day. So the book review that we're going to be talking about is A Kingsguard Tale, Book 1, Road to Celestia, by G.F. Allen. Now, what is this book about, you may say? Well, reading exactly what it says on the back. Dart Horowitz had always dreamed of becoming a Kingsguard, but he never imagined just how dangerous his training would become. When he's given the task of escorting Ava, the last ancient of the Celestials, back to her home in the sky, Dart finds himself thrown into a perilous adventure that could have dire consequences for humanity. Pursued relentlessly by an evil being who will stop at nothing to capture Ava, Dart and his charge must use every ounce of their strength, courage, and wits to survive. From the desolate wastelands to the treacherous mountains, they face one danger after another, never knowing who they can trust. Will they make it to their destination in time, or will the world be plunged into chaos? This thrilling tale of adventure, magic, and heroism will keep you on the edge of your seat to the very last page. Now, that is exactly what it says. And I remember I was trying to find how I found this book. I was looking on Twitter, seeing all these different people's books and like indie authors, and I was like, well, I wanted to continue the support indie author thing because, again, I did the Stormbright book, and I was like, well, what could I do next? Then I saw this cover, and I thought this emblem, this wolf emblem thing for the Kingsguard, I was like, that's a cool cover. Like, legitimately, that is a cool cover. I like how it looks and everything like that. But I was like, okay, and it's part of a series. All right, indie author, I'll buy it and try it out. And I ordered it, thinking September. It was either September or early October. Though the publishing it says on this is October 8th, so I guess it was early October. But I swear I got it sooner than that, so I don't know. But I ordered it to see what it was about and everything like that. Uh, Now here is the part of the review where I'm going to give a big. It's not the spoiler alert yet. It is a big asterisk to what all I'm going to say, because here's the thing. I started encountering some issues with the book with like the formatting and everything. Like, I could just show you. Like, you would have stuff like this, but then you would have stuff like this where it's more closer together. Then you have like stuff where it just kind of cuts off on the page and it goes on to the next page and everything like that, where it wasn't really all together. And I was like, what's the deal? Why is this happening and everything like that? And it was jarring enough that sometimes some of the sentences weren't mashing together, weren't doing well and everything, that I reached out to Mr. Allen on Twitter. And he responded and everything and said, yeah, he's since updated the book, but it still had this issue thing. Now, I gave a little benefit of the doubt because knowing my own thing with Amazon, my this is like one of my first proofs for Amazon. See, like, kind of how it did this. Now, this can be okay if that's what you're consistently doing and everything, but his is consistently all over the place. And it just felt like, what is going on? And I don't know if it's the formatting or anything like that, but reading through reviews and everything, it seemed like the book really felt like a first draft and that it wasn't really put forward and everything. Like, proofreading, nothing happened proofread wise and everything. But again, yes, was it really proofread? Not exactly. But again, this version of the book that I have is that earlier version. Talking with Mr. Allen, it seems like he did, in fact, update it. I don't know when, but if he has updated it and proofread better and everything like that, that makes it like, okay, then why did I get an older version? See, this is something that, for KDP and everything, that makes me a little worried, and just indie authors in general, you can't control, I guess, what versions you're necessarily getting and everything. Yes, you can like with this, I had to keep, till I got the proof thing right, I had to keep updating it until I got back a version that was satisfactory to me that I could put out. And I learned that quickly that definitely do a proof of your book and actually read through it, because you can kind of see on the KDP website if you order through Amazon. That's why I ordered this, and you can kind of see where how it's going on the pages and everything, and you can make adjustments from there. But if you make those adjustments, but they still send like a copy that's, not really like the proofread and everything like that, it's just like, man, that gives a bad impression of something. And it's just like, wow, because the formatting and stuff not being all over the place, because it felt like it was jarring how something, oh yeah, it was described how it happened. Oh, okay, that's over with. But then it keeps going like that. It's still going and that wasn't resolved. I'm like, wait a minute, what? It takes away from the book. It takes away from the story, because it's just like, it's not sometimes consistent. And I brought that up to him, and he's like, yeah, I updated it. But man, it makes me wonder, like, oh crap, does that mean my stories might have got screwed over in that type of way? But unfortunately, that's not something you can handle. But so that's why, you know, do some digging and everything. I just want to judge the author. It's like, this author sucks, I want to throw it away or anything like that. One, no. If I buy the book, I'm going to read it fully, because you made it, unless it's absolute just garbage material. I'm like, no. But if there's like some sort of vein and everything and stuff, I'm going to at least respect it and try to go through. And there is a vein and everything to go through, so I went through it. It's got 500 pages in it, which to do that in any book form is an amazing thing to try to do. So, and imagination wise, that's there. Like my first book, Blowing of the Lilacs. Let's see if this version here. This is showing about 160 something pages. I think the official version came out, it's like 180 something pages, all edited down and everything. Could be more or less depending on how you put it on the thing. Maybe edited this down, could be like 350 or something, I feel. But it's 500 pages, so that's a lot of information you're going through. It's like, wow. So even if a 300 page book, that's a lot that you're pushing forward and everything to try to make up a world and everything like that. So there is a respect there to be like, cool, that's good. And again, I did some digging, looked at other reviews on Goodreads and everything, how everyone was kind of saying the same thing. But again, how often was it from when it was initially published to now? I mean, because it was like, this was published originally, I think, in 2023. So how come I got an old version that, since it was like updated, and it's just like, oh man, that's frustrating. But I mean, you can't necessarily help that, so that's okay. Now, if you do like what I did, if for some reason if it's still too jarring for you to not even finish, because I read one review that like did not finish, and I was just like, oh. But if you do continue to move on or anything, how is the book? No, non-spoilers first. You get a lot of, imagination and everything, world building and stuff. It's mostly fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi, although I guess from what I know, there's more fantasy stuff starting to plug into, not fantasy stuff, sci-fi stuff starting to plug in more and more to some fantasy things I've seen. And it's just kind of like, why are there automatons and stuff and guns and, huh? But depends how you define fantasy and how further you want to go. And I suppose there's different levels of fantasy, but this is, I guess you could say, sword and sorcery. There's different parts, like with the fight scenes. For some reason, towards the end, I'm thinking, I can imagine this like as an anime fight scene. Or not anime, but animated fight scene. It was like, okay. And if I can start imagining it as an animated fight scene, because I like thinking things in like movie format or animation and stuff, then that's a good thing. So that's just like, all right, that's good. As far as how it reads, I'd say young adult. There's not any curse words that I can think of. There might be a couple, but it's not anything. Yeah, but yeah, there's a mention of hell, but there's not really much else that can really get into it and everything. Plenty of action, plenty of things describing stuff, magical, different things and stuff like that. Again, hopefully you get an updated version if you do try it out, and if you want to try it out, you definitely got an option here. He's working on a second book. I bring up the proofread issue also because, I brought this up to him and he said, well, would you be willing to read the second book? He has some other ARC readers and everything. I don't know what ARC means. I just think of better read, and I'm just like, I can, if you wish. So that's the thing I would say is like, if you're going to critique a book and they say, well, would you offer to help? Or what would you suggest? Be willing to do that, because you would want someone to help you with your books and everything, especially if you're doing indie author. So help me help you. That type thing as well. But before I start speaking into spoiler review, I would say if you like fantasy books and everything, and you're still willing to give an indie author's try, especially with his debut novel, 500 pages. Yes, the proofreading issue, I know, sentence structure and how everything is. Hopefully, you get the updated version compared to mine, but hopefully, it's a nice read and everything. You get through and stuff. You get an idea of how everything goes around. It's like to see the world stuff, how this world works and everything. So that's what I would say. So now we're into the spoiler review. I'm gonna do this from now on for spoiler stuff. If you don't want to hear the spoiler review, move along. Go on and click on another channel. I'll see you in the next review. But if you want to hear for the spoiler review, well, wait for these messages. And welcome back to the spoiler review. Now, I mean, you could watch a little bit more if you want to get into it. It is medieval fantasy and everything like that, mostly. Has a little bit of sci-fi. Dart Horowitz, or one section with a proofread thing said Horowitz, missing the middle O. I'm like, is that just how the person talks? But fun fact, Horowitz is the original last name of the Stooges. It's actually Gorovitz, but in American accent, it's like Horovitz, so it became Horowitz, which would become Howard. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Three Stooges, Moe, Curly, Shemp. They were brothers. So I'm seeing the word Horowitz, I'm like, oh, Three Stooges. But as far as the characterizations and everything, because he kept asking me, the author, about the characterizations. What do I think of the characterizations? Dart is fine. I wish that, I mean, he's burdened by, like, hey, he's really ambitious. He wants to be a Kingsguard. He wants to be someone high up and everything and be like the knights of old, and his mentor, Jack, who's, very inspirational to him and everything like that. But getting into, like, it's like he has some diary entries, but it's all, like, put in one go, at least again in my version. It's all put in one go, and I wish it was sprinkled throughout the book, because then you could see his viewpoints of flashbacks back in the past and how that works and everything. I don't really want to get into, like, telling someone you should do this and that and switch this around, and because how I would do something as far as, say, a flashback and a certain thing may not be like what someone else wants to do. Because I do believe in that freedom for writers of, like, hey, you want to write the way you want to write? I can give you suggestions of how it could work better, but it is up to you and how you want to do it. Like Tolkien, you get into Tolkien's books, he gets into the stuff about a tree and everything right away, so it's just kind of like, I can imagine some people saying, like, whoa, he should have done this and that, and I'm like, well, I had to leave it the way it is. So even though I could say maybe you could have sprinkled it throughout and everything, like use these diary entries at different times and get maybe flashbacks to different moments in his life in the past sprinkled throughout the book, that would have been better. But again, it's up to author priority and what they prefer and everything. Dart, again, ambitious and everything. He's always trying to push forward, trying to do everything. Of course, he believes he has a failure because they're dealing with these infernal demons and all that are causing trouble all over the place. Like, one thing with the proofreading stuff, instead of saying demonstrated, sometimes this is infernal strated. I'm just like, what? It took me a couple of minutes, like, what? Why does it say infernal strated? It's supposed to demonstrate it, but I think it's taking the word demon and using the word infernal. So for demonstrated, it's just infernal strated. I just found that, like, that's kind of interesting. But again, the proofread issue, how it is now versus what I have in the book, I don't know. But he has this, like, lion type guy who's okay. It's like, all right, he's got a cat-like person, a butler and everything. It's like, name for a cat, Butler. But he's right there. He's kind of tough and everything. He's like, but he has a soft spot for Ava, the Celestial, who is this kind of like magical being. I think basically like an elf, but she acts like kind of like a young kid. I think she is a young kid. It's kind of unclear as like whether she's a teenager, tween, like 12 years old or something, or younger. Sometimes it kind of was like, wait, I thought she was older when we first get introduced to her compared to the beginning. And I was just like, all right, whatever. But she's trying to, kind of wanted to do her own thing, but they got to return her back to the kingdom and everything. And they're like, okay, let's go back here and forth. But it's kind of confusing of where to take her and where to go because they don't know what to do with her and everything like that. And plus, she has powers, and these Infernals are trying to get after her because, oh, the Infernals want to take her powers and use it because it could help do a lot of stuff and do a lot of things. And it's like, not good. Now, fight scenes I will specifically speak on about the, things with the Infernals, it makes it really feel OP. Like these things, like the Scarecrow demon thing, you can't really kill. Not easily or anything. It's very hard to kill any of these stuff without basically killing yourself. I mean, in some ways, it's just like, how do you kill these things? It's very hard to kill these things. It takes so much to do it. That's why I was starting to think of the animation fights. Like, okay, but it takes so much to do it. But again, the issues of the proofread thing is like, on one hand, it says Butler defeated the thing. It's like, okay, cool, but then they're still fighting. I'm like, wait, why are we still fighting about this? But again, that's just how different stuff work. Probably, honestly, the favorite character that came up to me is Elise, who's the friend in the beginning. She definitely doesn't actually kind of already have a crush on Dart, who is a childhood friend and everything. Dart doesn't necessarily, he does hold her dear, but not necessarily exactly as interested in her yet. We'll see what happens in the second book. But she's, of course, jaded. The town gets kind of destroyed by Infernals almost, and she is able to get away, but everyone thinks she's dead. She joins up with a guild, and the guild is trying to teach her and everything, and she's first thinking, oh, it's okay, you're trying to do something. Turns out the guild may not necessarily be so good, and especially not, of course, I won't get into that. But you kind of see with her, and I brought that up, how Elise was kind of like my favorite character, almost like my favorite character to him, and he said, yeah, he had more portions with Elise, but other readers thought it was dragging the story down, so not really to get into it. And I was like, okay. Well, even the thing we had in the beginning with her, again, preference of like, you could have put it at a different portion to give flashback later on, or even used it for a second book. Like, you have her fighting off against her friend at the end, which we don't even know what happens with that. And then we can get into what happened, previously in another book or later on. She explains like kind of what happened to her and everything like that during that time when they're on the road. Dart could ask her like, hey, what happened? And she then explains the backstory of what would happen. As opposed to a middle chapter, all of a sudden, oh yeah, she's alive. I'm like, what? Again, the proofreading thing, though, compared to what it is now versus later, it's hard to tell and give credence to. But I don't know, just Ava's fine and everything. All the characters are fine and all that. You get Dale and Phoenix. Phoenix was interesting, a little dwarf guy. For some reason, I'm thinking of Hyder and Furyman. If you've seen Furyman, you see how, not Hyder, like the main hero, how he becomes old at the end. Yeah, like in the beginning of the thing, he's the young guy, he's in blue hair and everything. And then he becomes like this young. He's like hunched over, kind of like dwarfish and everything like that. When Furyman sees him 50 years later, that's kind of how I imagine Phoenix. For some reason, Hyder is the priest, but it's just kind of weird. Himmel, that's his name. But it's just kind of weird just thinking of that. It's like, I'm getting a Himmel idea when I'm seeing him. It's just what I was thinking of. Again, magic abilities and stuff. It's not exactly explained. I like the idea of the Krieg. The Krieg thing at first was kind of confusing. Like, what is Krieg? I might be saying that completely wrong. It might be Craig, more likely how it's spelled, Kreg. It might be Craig. I'm thinking Krieg like Warhammer, though. I was like, which way is it actually pronounced? Depends on your point of view. But the stones give power and everything. It was, the more it went on, explained, and I was like, okay, that makes more sense. But as far as how the book ends, it ends on a cliffhanger of like, hey, guess who's here? And it's just like, who's here? But that's how it ends. Who's here? So I was like, oh. But there's plenty of different adventures. I'm not sure if all of it was necessary or explained why they need to go here and there. But I mean, again, proofread how it was beginning to the end. It's kind of hard to judge how some things actually were, because you may have a copy and it'd be a completely new version of all these issues that I'm speaking about being fixed, or it was mine like, okay. So that's just the trouble. So it's kind of hard to judge in that aspect. But as far as the Kingsguard idea, like there's super soldiers with powers and everything and stuff, and it takes a lot of dedication and stuff to get to that rank, kind of like you see a character like Silver Fang, or I won't spoil the other person. Jack, yes, but there's another person. I don't want to get into too much spoilers. It's just like, okay, that's good. It's just, yes, you take the time to explain it, and we get a lot of emotions with it. It feels, again, anime is like, I got to think of what to do and really get the determination to get just all that build up stuff with that. That might be why I was thinking the anime side, because anime sometimes gets into like, I have to do this and this and this. It's stereotype, but that's for some reason what I was thinking about. It's just maybe too much over two things, because you have the Krieg and then you have things beyond the Krieg with the magic system and everything else. It just, there might be too much going at a time. But again, preference. An author maybe this author may be like, I want to explain everything so that way it's crystal clear to you. Whereas me, like, try to sprinkle throughout explaining how it goes. But again, it depends on your point of view. So that's just how it goes. This feels more like an analysis on writing than it does on the book. But again, it's hard to do because this version is not the final version. And it's just like, that's just the frustrating thing with it. And it completely can be on KDP's side. Nothing to do with him at all. And that's just what's frustrating, because I remember that one review that someone left that said like did not finish. And I'm just like, well, you miss out on the rest of the story. Yes, there's a lot of errors and everything in the proofread version, well, in the unedited version, but if you get into it, it's a fine story, magic and everything like that, and fighting. You got a lot of friendship stuff on the way. I wish it was actually a little bit more defined in some ways. But it's just like, I just think of that did not finish review and how that would make me feel in a way as an author. It's just like, it wouldn't bother me. I don't know how many books he has read. I mean, at least on Goodreads, he had like 50 reviews. That's more than what my books have. I only have like one. But at the same time, it's just like, that have someone say did not finish. It feels bad. It does. It feels bad. I understand not giving a book another chance or something, but I would say read the book fully, and then you'd be like, yeah, I could donate this book to the library or something like that, or give it to somebody else if you're not going to necessarily appreciate it, maybe to someone who will appreciate it and give it a shot. But to not finish, that's a rough thing to do, and I don't believe in that. Not necessarily, anyway. There might be one thing I could, like if it's too, anyway. But Kingsguard Tale. This is book 1, Road to Celestia. Have you read it? Have you not read it? What do you think about it? Do you think, I don't know, what do you think book 2 will be? I've offered to read what could happen in book 2, try to give ideas and stuff like that, and formatting and stuff, but I won't be the other better reader, seemingly. So my ideas of what this could happen could be completely different from somebody else. But overall, like on Goodreads, I gave it a 4-star. I was going to give it a 3, but knowing that there is an updated version, I was like, okay, I'll do a 4 because of the proofread thing. So I was like, I'll give it a little benefit of the doubt. I just wish that, at least for me, my reading taste is like, maybe not so much at a time, maybe sprinkle it more throughout and everything. As far as like the backstories and characters, it could be just organization better. That's what I think. That might be the main thing, and too much too fast that sometimes some things contradict. Like Butler kills a guy, then they keep going and fighting the guy. I'm like, huh? But that's just the way things are. But again, the story's fine. And according to what Mr. Allen says, is that the book 2 is coming along much better. It's 90% done, and it's much better in its formatting and proofreading and everything like that. So it's like, okay. So I hope in the second book I can give a much better, more positive review, because I feel like this review is not as positive as I want it to be. But that's okay. So, if you read the book, tell me what you think. Give the book a shot. It's available on Amazon. I'll link to it. And we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.